This is a presentation by project staff, international project staff that are one of the ministries in Samaritan's Purse. We have multiple ministries like North American Disaster Relief and Operation Christmas Child, which you might have heard of, but we are a Christian disaster relief organization, as many of you know. So it's really interesting to hear from that side of the equation, especially on an event that happened recently with Jamaica. And so Jon is going to do most of the speaking about some of the aspects of what projects did, and we learned a lot of lessons for sure during Jamaica. So this is GIS, Putting Disaster Response on the Map, just a perfect title. Thank you, Jon. And I'm going to hand it over now to Tim Opelt. He's going to do the rest of the emceeing, and I will dive off the camera here. Welcome, everyone. Oh, Tim, we can't hear you yet. Something went south. Try again. Take two.
Go. Good. Okay, sorry, we're sharing a mic across 3 different computers here in this room, but yeah, happy to talk to you guys today. Happy to introduce Jon Stone. Just a quick introduction, I'm the GIS manager on the international projects side. So we have 15 field offices around the world, and we have a disaster response unit that field offices kind of run regular programming throughout the year, water programs, food programs, and then we stand up disaster response teams whenever there's an earthquake, flood, natural disaster, man-made disaster around the world. And my colleague today is Joel Turner. Him and I are on the same team here in International Projects. And our guest speaker is Jon Stone. He's been here with the ministry a couple of years. He's been deployed on several different deployments, which he will talk about. He's been kind of on the ground seeing the damage firsthand, doing assessments, but he's also been back at headquarters leading teams and managing the response teams from a distance as well. So he's kind of seen both sides of it. We just love having him on the team. He's kind of our eyes and ears on the ground, helps us develop tools and improve the tools that we have for data collection and data analysis, many of which include GIS tools from Esri. So with that, I'll hand it over to Jon to present. Thanks, Jon.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I'm really honored to be invited today to present to you all. My name is Jon Stone. My official title within Samaritan's Purse is Senior Program Specialist. So I serve on our international disaster response team. And in that role, I'm usually on the first team out when we are going to deploy. And I get on the ground and I try to organize and coordinate our disaster efforts. Before joining Samaritan's Purse full-time, I've spent more than 25 years in emergency management or emergency response in some form as a firefighter and a paramedic and a hazmat specialist. But I'm also a professional emergency manager from Michigan. I've worked with municipalities and school districts and healthcare coalitions and public universities to develop crises planning. I'm a FEMA trainer since 2009 in their NIMS, National Incident Management System, and ICS platforms. So I've been enjoying. It's sort of an eclectic mix. I was just sharing with someone this morning that's new to our team. Probably the best description of people on our international disaster side is that we're not single-use utensils. We're more like we're multi-tools or Swiss Army knives, and that is my background. Been in 30 years. My wife and I lived in northern Kenya for a couple of years when another Christian NGO, and then God brought me to Samaritan's Purse back in 21, and in 22 I went to Ukraine and spent about a bunch of time, many months in Ukraine during the war in 22, and fell in love with Samaritan's Purse and their way of approaching quality work as a platform of a witness, and that's probably a phrase you'll hear me use several times. I thoroughly enjoy helping people in their moment of greatest need in Jesus' name. And I believe that gives us an opportunity to share the reason for the hope that is in us, especially when we do that with excellence. So today I'm excited to talk to you about GIS and how it's helping us in our disaster responses. It's probably not new to you all, but every disaster begins deceptively with a simple question, and that is, who is hurting and where are they? And beneath that question lies another, and that's both operational and theological. And it says, what does it mean to love our neighbor faithfully when they're suffering and the suffering is widespread? Information is incomplete and decisions must be made quickly. And we're trying to mobilize our efforts. And for us, increasingly, that comes back to GIS tools and the information and leveraging of information to make those decisions. At Samaritan's Purse, efficiency is really not, it's not a business metric at all. For us, it's more of a stewardship question. Within Samaritan's Purse, the optimal goal of improved efficiency can be defined like this. More people hearing the gospel of Jesus Christ with the support of timely and appropriate physical aid. That's our goal. The integration of GIS tools into every aspect of our mission leads directly to improved ministry to those in need. Every misrouted truck, every unnecessary air mission that we fly, or duplicate assessment represents not just inefficiency, but misdirected stewardship of sacrificial giving that we take very seriously. We believe we're stewarding the widow's mite, and as a result, both by God's call for us to be His witness and the faith and trust that people put in us and the prayers that they offer on our behalf, we're there to do a mission and do it with excellence in Jesus' name. And so I'm excited to be kind of at the tip of the spear of that into what I think is a central mission critical capacity. And the guys that are in the room with me will attest that I'm not a GIS professional by training. I am a daily consumer of GIS platform products and information, but I work closely with these guys because the team is developing and operationalizing assessment tools like mapping, products, dashboards, and that supports real-time decision-making across all of our responses, both here at our headquarters, but when I'm out in someplace in the world, I'm able to access those tools and we're able to make lifetime decisions that have direct impact on people's lives. I think that there are several ways that GIS increases our core outcomes. I'll offer a few of those to you, and then I'll try to get into some details recently of how I think these have been manifest. But GIS helps us in maintaining our situational awareness. I would add to that, like even obtaining our initial situational awareness in complex and fast-moving environments. Accurate information is critical, as we all know, to making good decisions. And our GIS team has been able to help us obtain and maintain good situational awareness. Identifying vulnerable populations and trusted local church partners. A lot of our work increasingly is through local church partners. I'll give you some examples of that, especially from Jamaica recently. And then improving allocation of personnel, equipment, and supplies so that aid reaches the right people at the right time. So those are three I'll just offer up to you, and I hope as I integrate these, as I share from our responses, you'll hear those things are integrated into each of the examples. I'm going to start off with about a year ago, our response to Hurricane Helene in western North Carolina and eastern Tennessee. When that disaster initially occurred, all communications infrastructure was severely degraded, if not completely taken offline. Roads were washed out, and there were literally thousands of people, tens of thousands of people that needed immediate help. But we were, for all intensive purposes, really trying to work in the dark initially. So GIS, our team, was able to respond quickly to that. Initially, one of the most valuable tools was was just identifying road closures. We were trying to get out into the communities, and they were able to scrape data from a number of sources, North Carolina Department of Transportation, other places, and we were able to start planning strategically how we could get out into the communities. And as a result of that, with all the road outages, that led to strategic decisions to start using air assets. And that air asset plan led to the largest civilian airlift operation in the U.S. as far as I'm aware, with like 300 whatever missions. I can't remember the final number anymore. It's been a while. So from the beginning, it was looking to our GIS team to provide data on the complexity of the situation. Then the mapping got more and more complicated as we went along. It was not just road outages, but it was flood damage mapping. And from that, we were able to determine the highest areas of impact. And from that, we were able to reach into those communities and make contact with fire departments and emergency management, and then start to program based on the intelligence we were being given, how we could start airlifting in with rotary aircraft, literally thousands and thousands of pounds of material, generators and water and food and blankets and solar lights, and that went on for about a month after Hurricane Helene. The dashboards that they were producing were up in our EOC, our Emergency Operations Center, and they were those dashboards then informed our leadership on how to effectively and efficiently allocate our air resources, and to make sure that the materials that we were providing to communities was hitting the highest target need area. So it was a mobilization, and it was a situational awareness, and it was a constant ongoing effectiveness validation that we were on target. And as a result, it turned into, I think, a very successful mission for us, reaching, 20 different counties across Western North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee. And, that was, yeah, I'll end that. On the international side, we have responded to floods and hurricanes and earthquakes recently. And I've been in Brazil and Jamaica and Myanmar, and most recently, or Jamaica was most recent. But in each one of these, we've had GIS support, including damage mapping before we even leave. So we're able to make our deployment decisions based on GIS tools and dashboards and maps before we've ever left North Carolina. This has been hugely important to determine with the mission extent, how many people are we sending, what resources, what sectors. So we went to Jamaica. We ended up putting a field hospital. We had our wash systems, water and sanitation systems. We had shelter, and the same thing even in Myanmar. And Myanmar being a restricted area, it was very difficult to get accurate information, but they were able to do data scraping and mapping of the earthquake areas. And that ended up really pinpointing the area up by Mandalay in northern Myanmar. And that's where I ended up leading a team for some time. So it allows us to prioritize. It allows us to identify the high impact areas, and it builds even the local capacity, because those tools and information is filtered down into the field. And so I had access while on the ground to information. Actually, it was even more accurate than the government was able to provide. And that, again, led to greater efficiency. And I'm going to just keep saying, for us, efficiency is not just getting more product on the ground, but it is capacitating quality ministry to the highest needs people in the most timely way. The other thing that we're doing increasingly is improving our assessment tool and data collection from the field. So we have this high level data that's coming from even before we deploy by them doing data scraping and things. But then once I'm on the ground, we have developed assessment tools, and there's really a progression of the quality of the assessment data that we're getting in. I think that during Helene, we did assessments on 6,000 individual households, which is just a massive data set. But even most recently in Jamaica, we were able to take these tools out, not on the household sense, but really in the community-wide assessments, and provide validation that what GIS is seeing from satellite data and data scraping from primary and secondary sources of information, we were able to provide primary data from the field. And I think in one of the cool things out of Jamaica, I'll just say this as a side, but there was a new satellite imaging tool that was available to us through a vendor, and they sent some maps to me, and I was on the ground in Black River, which was the epicenter of where the hurricane came ashore. And I was able to look at the maps that we were provided by this vendor, and it showed that there was only moderate damage in the area where we were working, yet I was looking at buildings that were completely destroyed. And I was able to do take some pictures, and when I got back up to cell service, was able to send that back. And then I think it's a cool, maybe this is a demonstration of how quickly everything can adapt towards excellence. But that information, once it came up back to IHQ, it was shared back with that vendor. They were able to make some tweaks to their system, and then the next rendition of maps were much more accurate and allowed us to do better program planning at the field side. So what I love is the dynamic relationship that we have with GIS. It informs before we go. It helps us get on the ground. And even that example shows that we can improve the accuracy so that we know that we're getting to where we need to be and doing that effectively. And then the last thing I'll say on Jamaica at this point is one of the cool things afterward was some satellite data that we got, because we put over 70,000 pieces of tarp distributed, because everyone, 145,000 structures were severely or completely destroyed, and many of those lost their rooftops. And so we were able to distribute 70,000 pieces of tarp, and by the end, we were getting satellite data where you could just see communities blanketed in blue. But that's obviously, we knew we were putting the tarp out, but it was pretty gratifying to know that you could actually see the people were grateful, and that's obviously the highest point. And we had good opportunities to share the gospel with them. But even satellite data was able to verify that we were on target. So we have this data flow. The other thing I want to talk about that we've recently developed, and you understand that. So I'm on the international disaster unit within our international projects department, but we have this beautiful ministry I'm sure you're familiar with, which is Operation Christmas Child. And one of the data sets that I was provided when I went down to Jamaica was that we had 250, I think was the number, Operation Christmas Child partner churches that were affiliated with us through to do Christmas box distributions and to share the gospel through the greatest story, the greatest journey. And so that gave us an immediate network. Those churches were mapped on the maps that I had loaded on tablets in the field. But one cool thing that we've developed is a forward information gathering tool. And this is a survey now that can be sent out the moment that we hear that a disaster has occurred someplace. So we used it kind of initially. I think Brazil was one of the first kind of launches. And then we tried it in Myanmar. Something we learned in Myanmar is that when you're working with a totalitarian regime, information gathering can be suspect. So we didn't get a lot of feedback because people got a survey and didn't know. We were maybe a little unclear that who is collecting the information, what purpose. So that was a good lesson learned, that when you're dealing with totalitarian regimes, data information collection with blind tools is probably not super effective. But we used it in Jamaica. And this tool, as we develop it, is going to provide and is providing now live feedback from partnering churches who are answering an assessment. Their locations are pinned on the map, the information is drawn up, and then that information from their assessment is given right over through dashboards to our decision-making team, so that as we're planning what goes on the airplane and what sectors we're going to activate, it's actually coming from a church right there on the ground, literally within minutes or hours of the time that the disaster has impacted the area. And that is a part of the collective partnership within the departments of Samaritan's Purse. But really, I think it highlights one of the great values going forward as we continue to develop this, is that the FIG, the Forward Information Gathering Tool, starts to provide actionable information before our team deploys. Then subsequent to Jamaica, we have another tool called the SPRIG. I guess we like acronyms. Samaritan's Purse Response Information Gathering Tool, the SPRIG. And this tool is what we're using. We used in Jamaica, we used in Brazil, we used in Myanmar for collecting community information. It's an assessment tool that is multi-sectoral. And again, that information and the geolocations of where we're collecting information is being fed back into the map, and that shows up on a dashboard, so that again, decision makers within the organization can see that we are where we need to be, and it validates sectors to either approve that is a sector appropriate response, or to reallocate resources to an area where we're seeing an unexpected need. FIG and SPRIG, internal acronyms for us, but to me, it's a collective benefit that GIS is developing, not only not only the tools before we go out, but then the validation of those needs and then mapping that information. So standardized, they're geo-referenced. It provides almost real-time visibility across all the sectors. So what we're seeing on the field can be seen here at headquarters. Anyone who has access to it can see it lifetime. I, as a program officer in the field, can see the assessment data lifetime. It provides for us rapid aggregation of data, and that data then translated into dashboards, which are easily decipherable, digestible, and accurate and timely decisions can be made. And then I love the continuous refinement, both of the tools, but I think also of the quality of our situational awareness. It just keeps getting tighter and tighter. And because we're developing these tools, it feels like the quality of data is getting better earlier and earlier in the response. And going back to like that FIG tool, we could start to get accurate, actionable data before we even send the first person to the airport to deploy. And so I'm excited both where we're at now, but I'm also excited about as these things are developing. So that FIG tool and the SPRIG tool were kind of a great double combination for us in Jamaica. We subsequent to our helicopter experience in Helene, we've now developed an air response team, and that in Jamaica involved 2 helicopters, a Bell 407 and 412. And because, again, road outages, how do we know we had road outages? I knew that before we ever went, because these guys provided me a map, and that map showed red lines everywhere, that there was no road access to the high impact areas from Melissa. So we were able to activate these helicopters. We were able to fly teams, assessment teams, into communities. Meanwhile, the helicopter, once they dropped off the team, the helicopters went back and got picked up loads through long lines and internal loading. While the team was doing the assessment in the community to determine the needs and the scope of the needs, helicopters were back inbound. And we were told over and over throughout the communities that we were the first help that they had received. And it provides some really beautiful time to be with them, to listen to the anguish of their loss, and to share hope in Jesus' name with them. And then see the loads come inbound, and just the relief that came through that as we were partnering with local churches and really trying to minister to people in their physical and spiritual needs. So I think Jamaica was a great example of how the data led to, and the new air response team, but that combination led to getting out way ahead of into the deepest need area quickly and providing substantial aid, and got to see many people come to faith in Jesus. Really tremendous and humbling to see his work. Partnership, church partnership mapping has been really important. More and more Samaritan's Purse is working through local church partners. That was really true in Brazil. Brazil, I can't remember, we partnered with over 500 churches, I think, at one point. So GIS has been able to strengthen our ability to identify local church partners. And again, particularly because we're mapping the highest severe damage area, but then they're scraping data and we're able to pinpoint those churches. So kind of flipping around, but in Jamaica, I used that church mapping to determine where I would try to land with a helicopter, and then I would try to go out and make contact with the church. So it was really that mapping that even helped guide our air missions, because our goal is not to just distribute ourselves. Like, Samaritan's Purse, again, another aside, I'm sorry, I've got too many anecdotal evidences of things that I've done, but in Brazil, that I was just mentioning, huge flood down in Porto Alegre, 800,000 people displaced in the greater metro area. So we tried to identify these local churches, and we provided, clean water, blankets, solar lights. We put out water filtration systems. It was really a very well, we didn't do medical, but almost every other sector was involved in the response in Jamaica, or in Brazil. And then a few weeks after, maybe a month after the response ended, I was able to lead a team back because we wanted to do a post-deployment assessment. And went out into the communities, again, went back to the same geolocated church locations, found the partners again, and asked questions of the community around to see, like, what did you think of the response and how can we improve? It was sort of a on-the-ground after-action review. And I went into the communities with my survey team that I trained up, a bunch of great Brazilian believers, and we kept running into the same problem. We'd say, well, what did you think about what Samaritan Purse did? And they would look at us and scratch their heads and said, who's that? They're like, oh, did you get help? Oh, yeah, we got lots of help. It was amazing. Well, where did you get your help? Well, this church here on the corner. And we knew that was a church that we had partnered with. So church partnerships at the end of data management and data assessment, while it's the right thing, like we're trying to elevate the local church so that people will look to the local church for their spiritual and physical needs long after Samaritan's Purse has left the disaster zone. But I think we're also learning now, when we do post-disaster assessment, this can be a challenge for us because we may have a difficult time of determining from the community's perspective whether or not we hit the mark. Most likely the effect that we'll have is be able to get back to the churches and have them tell us stories of how they saw our aid help them grow in the capacity to minister to their communities. I think this is a win for the kingdom, and we're not seeing this as a loss for our ministry. We're saying this as a growing a growing church, increased in capacity during disaster, is a win for the kingdom. And but it is something that we had to learn. Not all contexts allow the same data practices. I mentioned before Myanmar. We have learned that in restrictive and insecure environments, beneficiaries may fear providing information, data like that FIG tool, or even to talk to us at all, because we're outsiders. So this is where it's going to be more important to scrape data, to find anonymous sources, aggregation of secondary and tertiary data sources, and also, if we are going to do data collection, to make sure that we're assuring them that we have we're protective of any kind of sensitive data. We don't want them to say something that would jeopardize them. And in Myanmar, that was I think we only got like maybe 35 responses in all of the Myanmar. But we work in some of the most dangerous places in the world. So we have to adapt our ability to get some of this data into the system by surveying. I think it's more likely that we'll get it not from a FIG tool, but from the SPRIG tool, because we're doing in person, and we can give some assurances of how the data will be protected. We can also make sure that we're using anonymity and there's no direct correlation back to individuals or specific locations, but we can still collect some quality data and feed it into the system. Our goal and the tools and how we're adapting them is to always prioritize human dignity, recognizing all people created in God's image. One cool way that we're doing that post Jamaica is that our most recent SPRIG update is now including specific data collection on folks who have functional or cognitive disabilities, or who are severely vulnerable within their population for some reason. So again, that's sensitive, but we need to know that as we're building programming out, and that's trying to find the most vulnerable within the population and meet their needs. So from data to decisive action. So across the deployments, GIS and foreign products have directly supported, as I've mentioned now, and I think you've seen this, like early mission tasking and prioritization before we even leave North Carolina. The allocation of limited aviation assets, that was true in Jamaica, and we see that moving forward. Sequencing of how we layer in our programming, our WASH programming, shelter, if we're doing non-food item distributions, and medical programming, all coming back to how we've been able to collect data, how that data has informed our decisions, and even layering in, like initially, we're going to go to the critical needs. Do they have shelter? Do they have food and water? Before we start moving on to other components. Again, I'm tangential, apologize, but in Jamaica, I was surprised that they had such a huge need for water. It's a tropical island, but most of the homes down in the impact area all had rain catchment tanks. So when I saw the map and we had this improved satellite imagery from GIS, it became very clear that there were literally thousands of homes with no rooftops, and that was their primary source of water. So suddenly we had this very, very successful water filtration program that produced over 1 million liters of clean, potable drinking water. And that became one of the great wins, effective tools for the gospel in Jamaica, when I initially wasn't really thinking that shelter and WASH would be so inextricably linked. But that was certainly proven true, and GIS data helped us determine that. And then mid-response corrections based on lifetime feedback. We're not, what's the definition of insanity? Is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Like we're being able to get this lifetime data. It's there in dashboards and maps, and the information is right there at our fingertips in order for us to make corrective actions and improve our efficiency. Again, efficiency being improved programming so that we can meet people effectively in their time of need. And I love that that's made us more nimble on our feet, and as a result has improved the quality of our ministry. It does not replace human presence. Like, we can't just do mapping and satellites. We have to have responders on the field. We have to have the SPRIG and the FIG feeding the information. But it is not one. It's not one element. It's the collective gathering of information that then is being informed, allowing us to do informed decision. We're Samaritan's purse, and we understand from the parable that the Good Samaritan does not save from a distance, that he drew near, he absorbed the cost, and he stayed with the victim, even putting him on his own animal and taking him to the inn, and then promising to come back. And we believe that Jesus, through that, was revealing the kind of mercy that was representative in Christ, And now when he looks to, then he says, go and do likewise. And that kind of incarnational ministry is really what GIS is improving our capacity to be there, to be present, to be incarnational, to be effective in caring for the needs of these folks that have really lost hope in most cases. Our service does not earn us the right to speak about Jesus, right? It reflects mercy already received. When our work is timely and appropriate, the trust of the community grows. When trust grows, space opens, hearts open, hope is restored, gospel conversations can be had. GIS doesn't create these opportunities, but it protects them, and it helps us to find the place for them, and to do that, I think, more quickly and more effectively. So, for you all who are much more involved in GIS than I am, I would just say thank you. Like, GIS is a game changer for us. Truly, the effectiveness of our mission is inextricably linked to the gathering of accurate data and the application of that data to the decisions we're making, so that we can find those people in greatest need and care for them as quickly as possible. I experienced that as a first responder, but I'm seeing that even more internationally, and even like we found here in Helene. It also improves our stewardship, our resources. We can know more accurately that we are applying, the resources that we have been endowed with by God through prayer, through the sacrificial giving of individuals and churches. We can say back to them that we are accurate, we are effectively utilizing the trust that they've put in us. And then really it's improving our overall credibility within the community. And coming back to the local church, it's enabling us to empower that local church. And they don't see all of the systems behind us that allowed us to be there. But think about GIS really in the farthest reach is helping us build the capacity of local churches so that we can support their ministry both during the disaster and long after, as beacons of hope for Jesus Christ in their communities. So,
thank you, thank you, Jon. Really appreciate the presentation. It was awesome. I really like that you said that GIS protects. I don't know exactly how you phrased that, but it struck me that the GIS resources that we have protects our beneficiaries and what we're doing with our beneficiaries. So that's an interesting take, and I do appreciate that. So we're now in the question and answer time. I'll let Tim take it from here, but any questions, go ahead and unmute yourself if you'd like to and ask the question. We do have an order here. I think we're going to let Michael Nelson go first, and then Brad Fisher, you can ask your question if you'd like, and then anyone else after that. So go ahead and turn on your camera when you're going to ask, and obviously your microphone, and we'll see how this goes. But Tim, if you could MC the questions, that'd be great.
Great, thank you. I'm Michael P. Nelson. People just call me Michael P. I'm with JARS, Jungle Aviation and Relay Service. We have a very great relationship with Samaritan's Purse as well as a lot of other organizations. But I know when Hurricane Helene hit, it hit in the area where our jungle pilots train, and we were right in there. Please don't laugh, but at the time, our great GIS system was dropping some dots on a Google map. And we're now building up, I manage our operations center, and we're trying to build up our GIS capability. The other day, I had an incredibly inspiring conversation with Frank at MAF, and gave me a lot of vision for where we could really go. I know when Jamaica, when the hurricane hit Jamaica, Neil Mayo and Lance had called us up and said, "Hey, could you guys have aircraft on standby?" But from a GIS standpoint, I'm thinking there are a lot of things around the world where we're located, MAF is located, Ethnos 360, Samaritan's Purse, and others. And I didn't know if there was I don't know if we're going to solve this today. I'm throwing an idea out, but some kind of a shared GIS capability where we could say, okay, we're going to coordinate, because I know Hurricane Helene was a disaster where planes and helicopters were volunteering, which was great, but they were all over the place and overrunning each other. And it'd be good to have all of our organizations somehow collaborated and have a way with GIS to say, okay, if Samaritan's Purse is running the show, but JARS and MAF are helping, we'd be able to coordinate all that and see where each other are and where the needs are. So just a thought to throw out for something to look at.
Hey, Michael, if I could jump in, if that's okay, guys, as far as the collaboration piece. And I'll call you Michael P, but you have a great first name, by the way. So yeah, Frank and I have actually been talking, and certainly other folks in our organization have been talking about collaboration. We do already have an MOU collaboration with MAF, but we're excited to hear that you're entering into the great world of Esri GIS. We hope to see you at the Fed conference, by the way. There is technology already built into the system called the collaboration, amazingly, so between portals, and that is something that Frank and I have been discussing. We'd love to discuss it more with you, but it is electronic collaboration, honestly, that shares data. It could go one way, it can go two ways, and we can do that amongst all of ourselves because we're all using the same platform, which would be Esri. So just so you know that's there, you might want to look at into collaboration. And if you're going to the federal conference, which I would recommend highly, it's coming up in February, they can help you understand that more, or we can meet and talk about it more. Frank, you and I, whatever.
Yeah, because we're only a couple hours down the road from you, down south of Charlotte. So
yeah, I know. I kind of know where you're at. Yeah.
I'm limited in, I'm not in a senior level position, but I've heard from senior level people that we share information. We want to share information with other like-minded ministries, and so I can't speak specifically to how that's going to look, what that could look like, but I would be dumbfounded because I've heard it from the highest levels that we want to work with our like-minded partners, and we want to mobilize. And to me, I think GIS isn't just a linear add-on. Like I said before, a game changer, and I think it's an exponential catalyst for quality ministry, and especially if we end up sharing information and that means two ways. You're going to share information with us, we share information with you. I think that we are collectively looking for kingdom work to be done. And that's why I think, I cannot imagine that there wouldn't be an openness to that conversation. I don't know exactly what it'll look like, but I'm excited that you're doing that. And I look for more and more opportunities to serve alongside, because MAF, JARS, AIM, AIR, like we're in this together, and none of us will ever have an adequate number of air resources or ground resources to meet the whole need. But collectively, God can work through us to magnify and amplify our ministry for the gospel.
Amen.
Hey, Michael P, I'll put my email in the chat here. I don't have a problem sharing it with this group. But yeah, get in touch, because Frank and I have had some discussions amongst ourselves, and obviously you had discussions with Frank, in how to make this all happen, sort of in a practical way. So I'd love to talk to you about that and meet with you if I can, and Frank, of course, too. I don't know if you want to interject, Frank, at all, but certainly you can. But Frank and I we've been talking for a while about this, so I'm glad you're in the conversation now. This is great.
Oh, I'm delighted.
So if that's it for Michael P, it sounds like it. Brad, do you want to ask your question, or do you want me to ask it for you?
Yeah, it's just volunteer work. It's secular, quote unquote, but it's volunteer. I just mentioned it in the chat. Recommend anybody, if you have time during these big disasters, you can get on with GIS Core and help out in photo map. So I didn't know if you've ever used any of the photo map or maps, geolocated photos. It's really great opportunity. We did it both in Jamaica and Helene, so hundreds of photos, thousands really since it started. So just giving the opportunity for anybody that wants to help out in disaster from your desk. I know I've done that for many hours from my desk here in Missouri. So, if you've ever used that, or mainly wanted to bring it up to everybody to encourage you to, if you can help out. So it's kind of fun. It's not, it's tragic, but look, it's fun to locate photos, put your, GIS, geographic mind to work. So anyway, just wanted to use that and just give it the opportunity to do it.
Yeah. One thing we have looked at GIS core help for various things to see, but it sort of fell by the wayside, honestly. But I appreciate that interjection. I think the thing that I've been looking at too is OpenStreetMap, hot mapping, and doing that in a collaborative way too, because I think Tim can say we scrape a lot of data from OpenStreetMap, and so the more that's made fuller, or the data set is improved in those places, that's a super benefit to all of the organizations, because it sort of is that common resource. But yeah, we appreciate the work that GIS Core does, and certainly have wanted to engage, just hasn't worked out. I didn't know about, I forgot about the photo thing. I knew about it. I don't know if Tim has used it. He's more in that realm than I am. So I'll be quiet and let Tim answer that. But yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Brad. Really appreciate it.
I don't know that we've used that, but I know that we've captured a lot of photos. And I remember in Helene, like you could use our map and click on it and pull up pictures of damage of that individual house and things too. But I agree that having imagery is super important.
Yeah, so for Helene, and I think we've gone back and go back several years, and we look for those layers, those crowdsourced photo layers, and so we have that as a layer. I mean, we could have 30 to 50 layers in a map, and so we do try to put those crowdsourced photos in there. We did in Jamaica and Helene specifically. Helene was kind of powerful because we were seeing images from our hometown, like our local Walmart. Someone took a picture of that Walmart underwater, and so we were seeing extremely local photos that we could all relate to. Yeah, I've signed up a little bit and contributed to some of that in the past. But also, I remember during Helene, we also collected our own photos. So we would send all of our teams that would go out, helicopter, like what you're seeing here. We were able to geolocate, all the metadata on iPhones now can kind of capture location information. So we were flying aerial assessments, and they were coming back. We were offloading, hundreds of photos and placing them on the map. So we were using photo mappers from GIS Core, as well as our own primary collected photos as well from our teams. So we were able to kind of use those in conjunction. You can kind of see the flight paths there and the images. Some of those are from me. I think I flew one of those. Our leadership says just take your phone out and just start taking pictures, and a picture tells 1,000 words, as we know. So
yeah. We just so you guys know, we have a fleet of drones. We haven't really utilized them for aerial mapping at this point, but there has been some discussion now of doing that. The other sources that I think John alluded to but didn't name clearly is we signed contracts with ICEYE data. They're the satellite augmented. It's what, I can't think of it. I'm sorry. I'm getting the SAR thing stuck in my head, and I can't think of what that means. Can somebody help me? Synthetic aperture radar. There we go. Synthetic aperture radar. Man, my brain sometimes. So yeah, they can see through clouds. So we get that data. Their satellite constellation is taking pictures all the time. We do have a subscription with Planet. Their data is getting better and better all the time too. I think we're trying to work with Maxar, Vantor, and then we also have done Vexel imagery. Peter Bergen is on the call, I think, and he could talk more about that. But anyway, we have a lot of data sources, and I think the thing that I've hopefully stressed to our disaster relief teams, including Tim and Peter's in North America disaster relief, is we actually want to beat the boots on the ground with the data. We want to beat them so that they have it when they get to the ground. When they hit the ground, they've got data that at least they can ground verify, right? They can verify. So that has always been the goal. It's a hard goal. You don't realize how hard it is until you start going. That's our goal. So yeah, that's sort of been the modus operandi for a bunch of years now, and I think we're getting closer and closer, as John Jon said. So anyway, sorry, I'm taking up time here. I think we only have a couple of minutes. Is there any last questions? I'm sorry. I think this is going to end a little early because we started a little early. And I think the platform that we're using is going to kick us off in about 2 minutes. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. So if there's any one last question maybe that we could take, and then we're just going to have to sign off, unfortunately, just 5 minutes before. Is that correct, Lauren? Is it going to kick us off? Do you know?
Yes.
Yes, it will. So, okay. Any last questions? All right, if there's no last questions, I really appreciate everyone attending. So thankful to Jon for presenting, for Tim for doing some of the MC work. If you have any questions for us or Samaritan's Purse, I will put my email in here. It might be dangerous. Let me do it really quick. Yeah, and I can help answer. Love to coordinate again with JARS. Yeah, anyway, there's a lot going on here in this world, and I really think the impact, especially to reach the world with the gospel, is imperative, and this is a tool that we're using to do that very thing, and we'd love to coordinate with whomever is doing that work too. So anyway, thank you, everyone. We'll be communicating via the website and LinkedIn and Facebook and the mail list, and we'll keep you updated on any other new and upcoming webinars. So again, we appreciate everyone. Blessings on each and every one of you. God's blessings on each and every one of you. And signing off. Thanks again.